sometimes they try to increase the fare, so we go and fight for those different type of services to make it affordable for other people with disabilities. And I think that's it.
My name is Velma Taylor, and I work with the Obamacare. I started with the Long-Term Service Coordination, which is Mass Health and Medicare together, which formed an insurance. I go out to people's homes, I identify their needs. A lot of the people that I serve are behavioral health. There are people that have fell through the cracks and aren't able to go out and get their own primary care, medical needs, vision, or any type of health care needs that they may have.
I graduated from UMass like twice. My bachelor's degree in math and my master's degree in education.
I need her to tutor me in that.
I didn't realize by taking off my jacket I wouldn't have anywhere to clip this. So I guess I'm just gonna like awkwardly hold it because I'm hot. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. What's your name? Nathan?
Yeah.
Nathan's gonna be helping us with the slides. Okay, so in order to talk about advocacy for people with disabilities, it's important to understand the service population in which we are talking about. So who encompasses people with disabilities? What does that diagnosis look like? What does that identity look like? So the first way that we think about it is through federal law. So the federal law defines a person with a disability as a person who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities or is regarded to have such impairment. So that's sort of broad. Does anyone have like a more simplified version of that definition? It's kind of like weird how the lighting is, but like you guys look like shadows in some places because there's not any light shining on you. So if you do have a question, just kind of like raise your hand critically, and then one of us can sort of acknowledge that you either have a comment or a question. Okay, so just to sort of name a few physical or mental impairments. So it can be a hearing mobility, a visual impairment, chronic alcoholism, which often people don't think of being a disability, but if it hinders one or more major life activities such as going to work, interacting with your community, driving, it's therefore classified as a disability under federal law and the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. We'll get into that a bit more as this goes on, but that's sort of like a general overview. So other ways of thinking about disability. So how many of you are familiar with the medical model? Okay, so considering this is a laboratory, and I'm not sure what kind, I think that you might hear about the medical model within the context of this room a lot. Because typically that's what's thought of within science and the medical community. So within the medical model, it reflects the medical care system, which doesn't often, it does, label persons with disability as the client and the physician as the caregiver or the person to probably have the most answers or the best interests of the person with a disability. And so a little bit more about that. So within the medical model, doctors are thought to be medically competent. So when people go to hospitals, they assume and hope that their doctor knows what they're talking about. And so then that, by nature, puts people with disabilities within a secondary position within that relationship. And so they're thought to look up to the doctor for their care. So that's, now people with disabilities coming out of institutions and integrated into the community more, you'll see more people with disabilities engaging within their healthcare conversations, but that isn't something that's always happened for people with disabilities. primary decision maker. And so at Starbucks, we function off of the independent living philosophy, which is that people with, that people with disabilities should be in control of their own lives and able to be, oh, that's my boyfriend. People with disabilities can be responsible for making their own decisions and being the engaged participant in deciding. Yeah, so I know he's cute. So deciding when, where, and by who they can receive their care. So that's different than the medical model because the medical model suggests that the physician would be the primary decision maker. And so they say rehab would be a good decision for you. And as a client, you're supposed to say yes. So what else? So within the medical model, it's different than the independent living philosophy because the medical model frequently pushes cures. The concept of this medication will cure your disability. We will do X, Y, and Z in order for you to fit within the model of ableism or in the model or look as normal as possible. That's the medical model. Within the independent living philosophy, the framework that Starbucks functions upon as an organization, we don't embrace the medical model. We recognize it as a part of people's disabilities' lives. And so we recognize that the medical model is why a lot of us are here today. Given different surgeries, different medical advancements, that's why we're here. But we don't put that as a primary cause for our decision. And so us as people with disabilities, and we encourage our consumer population to not only look toward the cure, but also other areas of their life that can fulfill them. And so not only do you take the necessary medications, but you also are an engaged participant within the political process. You actively vote. You are a student. You are in a healthy relationship. Those are independent living goals that we push as an organization. So other descriptions of people with disabilities. So within the media, you also see sometimes they'll say, oh, this person was wheelchair bound. How many of you have ever heard that term? Okay, a lot. How many of you have ever met someone that was actually bound to their wheelchair? It was connected to their body. They could not get out of it at any point of the day. No one. Okay, so that's one aspect of how society views disability, which often stigmatizes people with disabilities. And so the word wheelchair bound insinuates that you are one with your mobility device. It acknowledges that you get around with that device, but it doesn't say that you can get out of it. Within that context, your mobility device defines you as a person. So that's somehow problematic, right? Because people with disabilities are more than their mobility devices, more than their diagnosis. They're advocates, they're family members, they're friends. Given that 1 out of 3 people have a disability, I assume that there's some people with disabilities in this room. So they're your peers. So often that's important to think about when you see the way that disability is talked about within our context, is what other characteristics make up people with disabilities and encompass their identity as a person with a disability. All right. Okay, so here's just a few diagnoses of disabilities. So a disability can be mental, physical. Okay, some physical ones can be an amputation, arthritis, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis. Do any of these sound familiar? Okay, good. So you guys are like, what the heck are all these? Mental, intellectual disabilities, anxiety-related disabilities. So we're seeing more anxiety-related disabilities being recognized as disabilities within society, which is really great because not only does it allow most individuals to be protected under the ADA, but it also makes that disability more mainstream and therefore creates more understanding of that. So we talked about this a bit before, but disability is both diverse in diagnosis and experience. And so just because somebody has a diagnosis of a disability doesn't mean that they're going to function completely the same way as someone else that has the same diagnosis. And so they might have some similarities or between them and another person that shares their diagnosis. So with me, I have osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a brittle bone disease. And so a common characteristic of my diagnosis is brittle bones. But that doesn't mean that that one defines my overall characteristic as a person and my overall sense of being. But I also have my own individual way of having my disability. So I'm ambulatory, which means that I walk full time. Oh, you're really good at this. Important legislation and policy advocacy tips. Yeah, can you do this? Or no, I can put it on the floor. So here's the things that we're hoping that you guys can get by the end of today. So what role has legislation played in advocacy for people with disabilities? So this means learning, different sort of policies, different sort of legislation tools. This is sort of legislation passed in 1990. Maybe some of you were born before 1990, but I wasn't. So I'm a post-ADA generation, so I don't know my life without this legislation. And so as a person with a disability, this legislation has shaped the way that I interact with my disability and the community around me and how my community around me interprets me as a person with a disability. So we can also talk about advocacy tools. So as a systems advocate, it's my job to encourage people to participate in the voting process or to engage with their elected officials that are in office. And so different ways that a person can be an advocate within policy is exercising their rights to vote. That's one way. A second way would be talking to your legislators. Those are people that you put into office. So calling them up, saying this is a bill that I support and this is why. Writing letters of support. As young people, you guys are young. You look young. So as young people, you also have a big role in policy because you're going to be the next generation of leaders. And so engaging with the student government, the people that are exercising their government here on campus, can also serve as an advocate. So if a person with a disability comes to you and they're like, we find that clubs on this campus aren't acceptable or aren't friendly for people with disabilities, going to your student government and figuring out ways to negate that issue is a great way to be an advocate. So this is Carmen, again, who's going to talk a little bit about that.
So I'm going to talk about the American with Disability Act, which was established in July, It was established in July 27, 1990. And this is the latest thing that many people with disabilities, or no matter what type of disability, we have the right to have different accommodations, like accommodations in the workplace. And when 15 or more people are working, the person who is in charge of administrating the office or whatever is required to get accommodations for those people with disabilities. But it doesn't mean that it could be if it's gonna do unburden, you are not required. You probably not required to get it because it has to be very reasonable. Another, and we have 5 titles in the One with Disability Act, one is employment, like I said. The other one is, one of the ones that I usually deal with is transportation. And that wasn't here before, so I'm able to actually get in and out of public bus without any difficulties. Also, I get the paratransit ride, which is one of the wonderful things when it's not late. Yeah. Usually I have to argue with them to be more reasonable to get me to work on time, because otherwise I get inspired. Also, we have another accommodation, which is in the public places, like restaurants, doctor's office, which 90% of the time is not even accessible. Tables are too high, or even to wait me. They are still not accessible with still for people with disabilities, like physical disabilities and other disabilities that are more complex. Also, we have, let me see, where is it? Oh, yeah. Digital communication. Most people with hearing impaired are not able to have the luxury to hear what TV or other stuff are around. So they are required to actually provide that closed captioning, especially in bad weather. There is also, what do you say on the last one? I forgot. Miscellaneous is, anything that can, that you know that is reasonable for people with disabilities to get around. Like this building is supposed to be accessible, but because of the building probably was built before the ADA, is not actually required to be totally accessible. New buildings now they have to be, but most of the time they get away with that. So that's one way that we also have to advocate to make sure that new buildings are accessible in the community. Also sidewalks. Most of the sidewalks are horrible. Yeah, around you now. Yeah, I was there so many times, and I remember taking a class and the elevator broke. So I had to argue with the professors to accommodate me and for me to take the exams or any other work outside the classroom. Instead of then using another classroom that was accessible for me to go.
it would cost them tens of thousands of dollars to make the location accessible. So they can make it readily accessible by providing some sort of accommodation or some sort of accessible entry, but they're not required under the ADA to break the whole building down as a means to make it accessible.
I also had an experience similar to that. When I used to live in my first apartment, I needed a door opener, automatic door opener, in order for me to get in and out of my house. They said that it was hardship, but in fact it wasn't. It just because it was too costly for the apartment manager to build it. But I was able to talk to my state rep, and she wrote a letter to the housing authority, and within like few weeks, they saw my door. So advocacy will work that way. If I didn't have my state rep, which I voted for her actually, I wouldn't have that accommodation. So it's important for us to actually have a vote, to vote, because you never know who and when you're going to use that as state rep or a senator or anything like that.
Are there any more questions about the ADA?
Come on, Alicia.
I think that's a no. I don't see any hands showing.
Come on.
Okay. So how many of you are interested in education? Okay, so this is something that you're probably become familiar with, which is IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Anyone ever heard of that before? All right. Okay, so since you guys are clearly already experts about IDEA, I'm just going to outline it really quickly. So IDEA is a federal law that requires schools to serve educational needs of eligible students with disabilities. So with that, it means that often you see people in the public school educational system receiving IEP plans, individual education plans. That's something. Okay, so with that, it will outline the reasonable accommodations in which a person will need within their educational setting, as well as their learning goals or their independent living goals, depending on the school. So within the context of IDEA, schools must evaluate students suspected of having a disability. So, as I'm a person who enjoys talking about intersectionality, men of color are typically misdiagnosed as having attention deficit disorder more than their white counterparts. That's always been like that. Not every child with learning or attention issues qualifies for special education under IDEA. So within the beginning, when you saw that list of documented disabilities or things you can classify as disabilities, so if you have a diagnosis that doesn't really give you a specific disability category, but you sort of like have the same functionality as someone that would have that same category, you wouldn't be qualified for your IDEA because you wouldn't have a documented disability. So with that, it's been difficult for especially underserved populations, so a lot of immigrant populations or parents that aren't able to advocate for their children because their children aren't learning or aren't participating within the classroom or aren't engaging in the educational process outside of school, but because they don't know how to express that given the language or other barriers, those will typically go undiagnosed. And so often you'll see individuals within those populations or often, or urban and uneducated populations, individuals becoming diagnosed with disabilities at a later age. So that also has to do with advocacy, is having individuals who are able and willing to serve as advocates for those individuals that they see aren't engaging in the educational process as much as they should. Just a hint to the game, IDEA might be in there. So just so everyone knows, if you're like a date kind of person, it was passed in 1975. And also IDEA also makes sure that parents are able to be engaged in the educational process of their children, especially. So when meetings happen under IDEA, parents have a legal right to be included within those conversations, which is great because it allows parents to also serve as an advocate in and out of the home for people with disabilities.
All right, so thank you, Jan Carmen, for setting the floor high. I know something. So I'm just pretty much go over parent but a few hot laws that protect our rights as people with disabilities. There are a few state and federal laws that provide strong protection for people with disabilities against housing discrimination. Some of the laws that protect fair housing rights of people with disabilities include the Fair Housing Act, the Massachusetts Housing Rights of People with Disabilities, and the Section 504 of the Rehab Act.
Nate, can you turn the mic up? Can you turn the mic up?
Oh, turn the mic up.
I said you're so good. Have you done?
Is that better? Better, yeah.
Hey guys, it's gonna start up again.
Are you guys okay? You good? Okay. Is that better, the mic?
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Was expenses for the reasonable modifications?
It says attendant expense if there isn't at least 10 units. And if the housing place isn't a HUD, so it's not given federal assistance. So for all those that are with disabilities wanting private housing, be careful, my gosh. Is that it about housing questions? Okay. I think this is a sign. I think this means that they're internalizing it and they're getting ready to reject it. So styrofoam programs and services. That's been part of the research.
Okay, we have few services. Most people will say, Starbucks as, place that we accommodate people, home. They usually call and say, oh, do you have any room available? No, we don't. It's a regular office. And mostly the name of Starbucks came from um, the brother of the founder who died in a motorcycle accident, I believe. And so he gave the name of Starbucks. We have 11 independent living centers in the home Massachusetts. So each of them do similar things that we do. So we have the Colorado Hearing Services, which the main location is in our Springfield office. We have 3 offices. One in Amherst, that's very far from here. The one in Springfield, which that there is a bit of Colorado Hearing Services. We have a personal care attendant program, which deals with people who have all type of mobility impaired. In order to qualify for that program, you need to have at least 2 APLs, which is like baby dressing, things like that you can do. Secondary can qualify for the global ABA. I always forget what is the ABL, which is secondary, which is like in shopping and things like that. Also, we have another program. Which we have a workshop of housing every month, switching between Springfield and Amherst. And it's not like they find housing for you. It's they give you tools how to find housing in the area. And it's usually for people with disabilities, no matter what type of disabilities. And it runs from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. In each office every other month. Um, Also, we have durable medical equipment, which it runs by one of our kids. It's a long program for people who have you can qualify for like $500 loan and can buy any assistance device. Also, we have a recycle program that they get equipment from other areas of people donate to us, and like that we can assist others who need that equipment. Also, we have the advocate, which we have at least 20 something advocates. We do different type of things for advocating for other people with disabilities. And we also give them tools how to advocate for themselves. The other program that we have is the transition to adulthood program. Oh, the building services. Building services is a great program. It's basically more than other programs, which is, for example, if grandmother or even mom had a stroke and the house is not accessible, they can assist them to guide the person to get out of home through one of the bands. So the house can be fully accessible. They do all the job, and actually they work with you on how you want that house to be totally accessible. Another program that we have is the TAP. And I used to work with the TAP program. It is between the ages of 14 to 22. You have to be enrolled in high school still. And the program helps you to with assistance to how to administrate your money, how to have fun in the community, how to advocate for yourself, no matter the age. If you are a young person with disability, you can advocate for your own self. Also, how to even apply for a job, because they have the program, which is also part of that program. And a few of the students who have participated in that program, they already had a job set up for them after graduation. And it's from 16 to 22, I believe, they, in order to participate with that program. And you need to be affiliated with NASREHAB, which is a great tool to have also in the community. NASREHAB counseling, and it's basically any services that are around the area, other agencies, we basically guide the person who calls, oh, what can I do about housing? What I can do about my health insurance or anything that people might not know in the area that's option counseling. And then one of the greatest program that we have is Home Sweet Home. It's for those people who have a house that is not accessible to get in and out of their house. We provide small loan payment for to build the rent. And most of those people who assist with the rent, they do it voluntarily. And they have done it for a few years, and people are excited to actually go out of their home because most of the time they've been locked in their home. So that piece of equipment help them to be part of the community again.
So the last program is outdoor access. So outdoor access provides accessible outdoor adventures for people with disabilities. So they'll do adaptive kayaking, adaptive fishing. They're taking a trip to like a handicap accessible haunted trail. So those sort of things. So typically, those sort of outdoor access programs that we see in our community are accessible for people with disabilities and don't accommodate those with mobility restrictions. So the outdoor access provides those sort of adventurous activities for people with disabilities. Any questions about any of our programs and services? And pronounce yourself and figure out a category and what points, like number of points you're willing to bid. If you get it right, you gain the point. If you get it wrong, you lose the point. And remember, this is testing you on both what we said. Hello? Hi. This is testing you both on what we said and what was written on the PowerPoint slide.
Can the spokesperson come up like right here?
Yeah, who is his name?
Who is your spokesperson?
This green
Can
guy?
he come like in the middle here?
Do you mind moving up so everyone can confer with you? Thanks.
So,
Alright,
what? What?
All the other groups should be
Can I
getting
go on
ready.
the phone?
yeah, I'm not talking about you.
Oh, my phone? I'm not talking.
Just kind of like in the middle so everyone can talk.
What do you guys want to do? ID 200? ID 200. Alright, go.
Are you ready? Yeah.
Advocacy 500.
Let's go 500. So advocacy for 500. Did advocacy lead to civil rights for people with disabilities?
What is yes?
Yes.
What is yes?
Yes.
What is yes?
Correct response. Click correct yes. So each
Who is
Your phone. Who is?
That's a pretty
So next group, question category.
We are accessibility 500. Real talk.
Yeah.
What is true?
What is true?
To the extent that it is not structurally impractical.
We will identify disability for 500.
Name a disability that would allow a student to receive extended time on exam. So I can give you a hint. If you think about the slides, it's different things. Yeah.
Tuition's negative. I know it.
The Americans with Disability Act requires employers to provide blank for disabled employees.
Reasonable accommodations.
Texting my mom.
So think of the different Starbucks programs.
Should I wear the cancel card on them or no? Because I'm feeling an ass.
Do another 500.
We can try to have it go a little quicker because we'll all be here all day. So just start thinking about your question and your point. Yeah.
Advocacy 400. Yeah, good choice.
Name one historical piece of legislation that
Idea.
changed the lives of people with disabilities.
Idea.
Okay. Disability is a law.
This federal law protects disabled people What type of disability makes social interaction and communication difficult?
You guys, why haven't we gone?
What year would IDEA have?
I think you're skipping over 1 and 2. Oh.
Numbers too long. Are we up again?
Relocating a class to another classroom that is readily accessible for a student with a disability is an example of
I think it's team
a
5 now. Then we're up after that.
reasonable accommodation.
at 300.
Advocacy 300.
Advocacy 300. Do all children within the educational system qualify for special education services under IDEA?
What is false?
False, no.
You told me, what did you say?
False,
Yeah.
no. Yeah.
I got you guys.
Stavros 400. I'm guessing, yeah.
This DACA program allows individuals to borrow equipment like wheelchairs, walkers, and crutches.
I was pissed. Just, I didn't go away with like a pumpkin donut. Or I think
Pumpkin
What is it? 3 seconds. Durable medical equipment loan.
True or false? Chronic alcoholism is considered a disability.
It's been a while.
Public entity made to existing facilities to make them successful.
Are they together? Are they together?
I don't think that's how it works.
Thermal housing services help consumers define blank housing. Okay, that's good.
Advocacy for 200.
Advocacy for 200.
Guys, what do you want?
Name one step to being an advocate.
Freedom of speech.
Raising awareness. Yeah, that's right. We're talking about that's
I think I'll give you part. We'll give them half.
Identifying disability 200.
What disability makes it tough to read and spell?
Dyslexia. Sorry, dyslexia.
Means I'm safe.
True or false? IDEA eliminates parent participation in their children's in-house education.
she has a program where she can like speak into it. She runs like right now.
I guess they can.
She brings the lessons in. But like all the time.
So that's kind of complicated. But it basically ensures that an employer can't presume assumptions of someone's disability. So they can't be like, oh, you look like you might be some sort of like, you look like you might be like modifications on your computer. I'm just gonna go ahead and print it. But you guys can finish that in your report. During the summer, disabled participants can go kayaking and hiking via Woodstar Lake.
During the summer. That was
Advocacy for 100.
One of the key components being an advocate.
We're good at that.
So think about the different things that I said at the beginning that might serve to like, this.
write a letter to your state. Write a letter to your state being
Talking to legislators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to home.
Identifying disability.
A disability can be a blank or blank that standard limits one or more major licenses.
Physical or mental.
That would be nothing. So physical.